us remotely. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2020 meeting. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion, do I have a second? Second by Peckham. Any discussion? Oh. No, just stretching. Cool. All those in favor of approving the minutes can signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is our public hearing. So I'm going to open, maybe before I open the public hearing, on the plan for 1404, 1406, and 1412 Grand Avenue, and 105, 107, and 111 Surgeonetti Road. Maybe somebody from Share could just give us a brief overview, maybe give us some context for this. Is that all right? All right, is that Jennifer?
Yes.
Perfect. Would you like to just give us a brief, before I open it up so that people can have some context, you can,
Sure, so I'm Jennifer Blair, Sheriff.
we might need you by the microphone.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, we do need you.
Jennifer Blair, Sheriff Construction. So the plan for the property is to, as the neighbors and staff know, there are currently, it is a PUD, and there are currently 3 existing multifamily units on the property. And there is one, and then in the back, it's kind of 2 parcels combined as 1 PUD with a total of 4 buildings and approximately 15 units. The buildings themselves are a little bit in disrepair, and so the developer, Colby Investments, has decided that they want to raise the 3 buildings right on the corner, the 105, 107, 11, 14, or 04 and 06, and rebuild with new multi-unit buildings. We had a kind of an unexpected twist this morning. The owner of 1414 Grand Avenue approached the developer, Colby Investments, this morning, and they have agreed to sell Colby Investments that property. So we are going to take that additional piece, try and add it into the PUD, and the premise of the project is still the same. Tear down the 3 buildings. We will now be tearing down the 4th building and putting up multi-unit. It actually comes as a benefit because now we can, I know there was some question about the amount of parking and so forth, and with the additional piece of land, we'll be able to open it up a little bit more, meet those parking requirements, and still have ample units and space and green space. I know that kind of came as a very last-minute twist. If you want me to explain more, we've spent most of the day today coming up with a concept plan for the site development. And if you'd like, I can kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I think if you want to just, give us some context for the
Okay.
public hearing, because it might answer some questions.
Okay, so the previous project that we were going for, we were looking to develop 29 units, mixed 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. We're still looking to do 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, but with the additional piece of land, we're looking to do 32 units. With that extra land, we can also, like I said, we will more than meet the city's requirements for 1.5 units per dwelling unit for 0 to 2 bedrooms. We'll also meet the parking for the existing conversion of the 6-unit to the 4-unit. So we'll end up with a total of 56 parking spaces. Of that, 48 of them will be surface spaces, and 8 will still be in 2-bedroom or in 2-car garages underneath the buildings. The other thing that this does for us too is we've kind of looked at how the plans and buildings will lay out, and we're looking, instead of this plan, which had 3 buildings, full 3 stories, all the way across, we're looking at the footprint will be very similar to what you see, except that the end units will be just a 2-story. Some of them will have the garage underneath with a unit above, and then the middle section will be the 3-story section. So we'll have a lot more height variations, articulation, and it won't appear quite as boxy as what we've proposed here. So that the purchase of that piece of land will been very beneficial to the project.
Thank you very much. I guess I'm just going to officially open our public hearing for discussion and possible action on amending the general development plan and specific implementation plan at 1404, 1406, 1412 Grand Avenue, and 105, 107, and 111 Sturgeonetti Road to allow for a 3 multiplex residential buildings in a planned unit development. So I guess the time is now for the public to let us know your thoughts. Feel free to, when you approach, give us your name and your address and for the record, and we'll hear you.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
It's kind of hard to tell with the mask. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come forward and speak about this project. My name is Mary Ann Gullihur. If you need that spelling, it's Gullihur. And I'm here along with some of my colleagues, Sue Nowak, Bonnie Clower, Steve Gullihur, and we are here to represent the Southeast Side Neighborhood Group. We also have 2 additional members who were unable to attend this evening. First thing we want to express is that our leadership team, the Southeast Side leadership team, we are extremely excited about the proposal of a new structure at the corner of Sturgeonetti and Grand Avenue. I have been a resident in that neighborhood for a little over 2 years now, and a member of the Southeast Side neighborhood leadership team. And for the past 2 years, it has been a focus for us to, we've been really looking closely at Grand Avenue, and our priority has been, we're looking at ways to, what we call, make Grand Avenue grand again by improving its appearance. So we're very excited about this new structure that is being proposed. It appears lovely in the drawings, of course. But we do have some concerns that we would like to bring forward and perhaps can be discussed and questions answered. The corner of Sturgeonetti and Grand is very significant. Grand Avenue being that it is the main thoroughfare, probably the busiest street in the entire city. There's a signal at that corner, and it also marks the kind of the boundary of our neighborhood going from Grand Avenue and Sturgeonetti all the way down to Lakeview. So it's kind of like everyone's first appearance, first impression of our neighborhood. So it's very, very visible to not just residents in Wausau, not just residents in the Southeast Side neighborhood, but also anyone who's visiting our community or coming from out of town. I myself, first time I came to Wausau, that was the first thing I did was drive down Grand Avenue, and when I saw the building, the structures there, I just kind of went, oh dear. It's looking very tired compared to how lovely our downtown area is. So that particular corner really sets a tone for our neighborhood. One of our big concerns for our neighborhood group is, and this comes from, personally for me, for 2 years, over 2 years of observation of how this property has been maintained by the property owner. I personally have observed trash on the property, ground trash, overflowing bins, disrepair of the building structure, the structure of the building, overgrown grass. It just, in my experience, there's been no maintenance on this property for quite some time. So that's a concern for this new building. So my first question would be, what is the plan for maintenance, for ground maintenance, for building maintenance? Is there going to be an on-site manager to assure that repairs are made, that these residences, the people who move in, if something breaks, if something is worn out, who are they going to be contacting to take care of whatever problem is? If trash is left into the parking lot, who is going to be responsible for cleaning that up? Because right now there is, and has been for at least 2 years, and probably more than that, there's nobody taking care of anything there. And it's just, the residents have made no effort to pick up even a water bottle. When people move in and out, they leave things. I'm a former landlord myself, and I understand how people kind of live on the fly, and they don't always pack up their things. They just leave them and they go. Who's going to be responsible for cleaning all this up? And you know as well as I do, that's what's going to happen. That's just the way people are. So that's my big concern. Currently, I'm working for the U.S. government, the Census Bureau, as an enumerator, and this is that neighborhood is my district to collect data for the Census Bureau, and I have spent many, many hours walking Grand Avenue, walking Sturgeon Eddy. I was personally assigned that building on that corner to enumerate for the government. So that meant, I was knocking on doors. That meant I was trying to establish, is there a resident there? Is it vacant? So of course I'm having to peek in a little bit to see, and yes, I'm totally aware that the buildings are vacant. But never in my life have I been so disgusted on what I've seen, not just inside, but outside. I had to contact the residences in the unit that is kind of hidden toward the back, and I believe there's 3 or 4 people living there. I'm very concerned. Why has no one called the health department? I'm very concerned why the city has not taken action to get that cleaned up. Nobody should have to live like that. So I'm here today that, yes, we're very excited, but what we would like to know for the Southeast Side residents is, what is the plan for maintenance and care of this lovely new structure that we're hoping it'll be built, but we want to make sure that it's going to be well maintained and kept up, because as you are, I'm sure most of you are property owners. We all want to keep our property values at least stable, if not rising. We want our Southeast Side neighborhood to be a place where people want to find a home to live, because it is a wonderful neighborhood. So if you can address those issues and questions for us tonight, that would be really appreciated. Let's see if I had anything else just before I sit down. Oh, one other item is the buildings look lovely, but they're quite, even as they are right now, the structures are quite compact onto that lot. And another concern would be, has anyone thought about the snow removal? Where is that snow going to go? We know that we all have to, when you're designing setting up your yard or your garden or whatever it is in your own residence, you've got to think for a second, wait a minute, it's going to snow this winter. If I plant this tree here, or I put in, these particular bushes there, or I put in a shed, where are you going to blow your snow? So I just want to make sure that that's addressed as well, and make sure that that's been thought of. Because it is such a tight corner, it has very limited space. So if you would address that as well, that would be helpful. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We are ready for the next person. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Gallagher, 316 Reuter Street. I'm also a member of the Southeast Side Neighborhood Leadership Team. I have concerns. I know she addressed some of them just now with the additional parking, but there's a serious parking issue, and we need more spaces, I think, than they even want to give. Because Sturgeonetti, in the proposal, says there's parking 350 feet down the road, there's like 4 spaces, and most of the people that live on Sturgeonetti in that area use those to park when they have gas or when they have an extra car. So you can't use that for the apartment building. The apartment building should be self-sustaining completely with their parking. The other issue is they said there's parking on Miller Street and about 300 feet around. Miller Street is a tiny little street with a lot of driveways. You can't expect people to park over there. And what's going to happen is if there's not enough parking, they're going to park in the Advantage Insurance parking lot, and they're going to go across to Sturgeon Bluffs Apartments parking lot. And it's going to cause more traffic and more people, and it's going to cause safety issues, especially in Sturgeon Bluffs, with the disabled people that are out in front and going in the parking lot as it is. So I think when they say 1.5 spaces per 1-bedroom, these are market rate apartments. People are going to have to use, it's going to be couples, and most of them are going to have 2 cars because they both have to work. You say there's transit right there and there's local employment, that's not going to make that much difference. You need to put more like 2 spaces per 1-bedroom. And that doesn't count for guests visiting in the complex. Where are they going to park? And going back to the snow removal, in the winter, some of those parking places, I'm sure, are going to be covered with snow. So where are they going to park in the winter? I think it's a really serious situation on parking, unlike any other places in town. And that needs to be addressed, I think, with more parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to discuss this? Thank you. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Sally Kitzrow, 128 Miller Avenue. Listening to them, I didn't really know what to expect to come to this, so I apologize if, I'll apologize up front. But I would like to say that I've lived in the southeast neighborhood for over 60 years. I've lived on Miller Avenue for over 40 years. When we moved into that neighborhood, it was quiet, it was safe. There was no garbage, there were no wildlife. Now there's garbage. The 1412 in the middle of the block, that 6th unit, people open up windows and throw garbage out the windows and just leave it. They don't take care of the yard. There are raccoons in the area. There are rats in the area. Both of those are unsafe for myself, for my neighbors, pets, children. Traffic, trying to get out on Grand Avenue, trying to get from Grand Avenue onto the southeast side. When you're going north, there is always a risk of getting rear-ended. There are multiple, I mean, you can look at the traffic report. There's not, there's constant rear ends for people trying to turn, when they're going north on Grand Avenue, turn into the southeast side. One of the, all of my life, basically, I've lived in that area. That has always been a desired neighborhood. And why? The reason is it's self-contained. You don't go in there to go to a Walmart or a Best Buy. You go in there because it's a quiet, safe neighborhood of families in homes that take care of their properties, not apartment buildings that are 3 stories high, not parking. Parking is an issue right now. I don't care if you have underground parking. Miller Avenue, where we live on, that street is constantly parked full. Every morning I get up, there are beer cans, empty beer containers in our front yard because it's a dark street and people go there. And we didn't used to have that. You know, you could of course, we live in a different times. We used to be able to leave our doors open, unlocked. Can't do that anymore because the people in those apartment places walk through your yards. They don't respect the people that live in the neighborhood because of the apartments that are there that are run down. As this lady mentioned, there's garbage all over. Again, the traffic lights, if you ever go on Sturgeonetti trying to get out on Grand Avenue, you sit at that stoplight. You can sit there for almost 5 minutes sometimes, and you add 32 units. If you're doing 56 parking spaces, how are you going to get out? How are you going to get out? You're going to get out on Grand Avenue, there's going to be accidents for people trying to pull out. If they go around the block on Miller or Fairmont, they're going to be lined up at the stoplight, and you're not going to get out. The height, it looks like it's 3 stories high. That's going to detract from, again, the neighborhood feeling of homes. I'm not interested in having apartments there. If I wanted to live in an apartment complex, I'd go and find an apartment complex and live there. I wouldn't live in a neighborhood where I pay taxes and have to upkeep with snow removal and yard work and have a yard for my family. And as far as the property owner hasn't taken care of the buildings on Sturgeonetti, I can't think of the addresses, there are disarrayed grills that have weeds that are grown over because they've been there, they haven't been used. There are weeds all over, garbage laying all over. Just because the property owner doesn't take care of it, we're going to allow them to rip it down to put up something else, to have 2 or 3 times or more people in there with increased garbage and whatever comes with that. Plus, you have to think about the clinic, the Aspirus clinics that's there, and Sturgeon Bluffs. You have elderly and disabled people that live in Sturgeon Bluffs, and now you're going to add 56 units or 32 units with that much more traffic to make it that much more unsafe for the people in Sturgeon Bluffs that walk that area, they cross the street. It's not going to be safe for them, and there's no way that it's going to be safe with that amount of traffic. And on Fairmont, right now, you have parking on one side, and if you ever go down there, when the bus comes through, you can't get through. People park on one side, the bus goes through. There's only parking on one side, and the side that doesn't have parking, people don't respect that now because there's overflow parking from the people that live there. And I guess that's all I really have to say, just that.
Thank you.
It's not desirable. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address this body during the public hearing? I think I technically have to ask 3 times, so I'll go ahead and ask one more time if anyone would like to address this body for the public hearing. All right, hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. It says on here we have discussion and possible action. I would entertain a motion before this body starts discussing. Motion by Neil, second, and I'm guessing your motion is to approve this? Okay. All right, is there any discussion? Ms. Older-Neal.
Well, I'll just start with a couple of things. One, practical, and one aesthetic, I guess. I live on Hamilton Street on the east side of town, and a couple blocks away from our house is the East High Apartments. Used to be the East High School. And I imagine there was concerns in the neighborhood about it becoming an apartment, facility. But it's proven to be a good neighbor all along. So, it's not that, per se, an apartment facility is going to be fraught with problems. I think issues that might arise could be, management issues, and those have to be addressed as they arise. And that's why we have an inspections department, and that's why we have police, and that needs to be looked at. We have processes in the city to deal with complaints, and we can go to the source and act upon them. So, we do have an existing facility there now that is run down and yes, needs to be replaced. At first, blush, this looks like a good replacement, aesthetically, for the most part. I'm a little concerned with, can we see one of the elevations? Right there. And I'm glad to see, like in the sort of like the inner courtyard and the south-facing wall, perhaps, balconies, nice amenity, breaks up the wall, and it's a welcome addition. But on facing Grand and facing Sturgeonetti, we have a flatter, more kind of almost institutional look with these kind of small, windows that seem to be attached to storage or like laundry area, that sort of thing. Those little, keyhole type windows, just to me, don't really give this a feeling of residence. It's just a bit too institutional for my liking. I'd kind of like to see that addressed. I don't know if outward-facing balconies is practical or desirable, but that would also give a feeling of a place to live rather than sort of a nondescript monolithic structure. So I don't know if that's possible. I imagine, if I'm looking right here now on the balcony on the inner area, if I were to walk off that balcony into the apartment and walk straight over to the other side, that would all be the same apartment, right? So, okay. So, yeah, I don't know if that could be switched around, or if that's desirable, or just a bad idea all around, but, balconies, a lot of times when I see, new developments, or condos or whatnot in metropolitan areas, they make sure there's balconies out there, because it gives a feeling of lived in and, recreation and enjoyment and community, On the flip side, one might fear, well, that's going to be a place where there's going to be junk out there and garbage and an eyesore. So again, it has to be something that's managed by management to ensure that it's up to a minimum standard. So I guess those are the two things that really occur to me. My first look is I think, especially with the addition of 1414, it seems like parking issues and snow storage issues could be a little bit easier to manage. So on the face of it right now, I'm pleased with what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Alder Peckham.
Yeah, I did attend our neighborhood association meeting last night, but I didn't get a chance to interact with any of the citizens about this issue. But as I reviewed the packet, I was also very concerned about the parking issue, and I know that up Grand Avenue, there's a building where technically they have adequate parking, but for some reason the residents park on the other side of Grand Avenue and walk across 4 lanes of traffic and leave their cars over on a side street. So people are strange. So I was pleased that 1414 grand can be acquired to help with the parking. And I would say that although we can have some trepidations for this project regarding the level of maintenance that we've seen there in the past, we can't really factor that in on today's vote. But we can look at parking, and we can look at the density, and I'm wondering if staff was able to kind of recalculate the number of square feet in this project per unit. Seems like they're really slashing our normal expectation, which is the disappointment. Less green space, imagine to a degree we want to let the market decide whether people want to live there, but it looks like we're really packing them in. And I guess if I could, if the chair would allow Ms. Blair or whoever is the spokesperson for this project to come back up and kind of explain why I should vote for this. What is it going to bring to our neighborhood? Is the high density going to result in rents that are $450 a month so that more workforce type people can afford them, or what's in it for us?
Sure, definitely. I would love it if you feel comfortable answering these questions, if you would.
Financial-wise, I'll defer, but,
I guess one of the things would be the rent. You know, normally if you look at more units in less space, you're doing that to keep the rent down. So what are your expectations on rent, and what are you hoping to do here?
My name is Jerry Cobley, Koble. We're developing the project. The rents aren't going to be in the 450 range. If you do that, you'd exacerbate the problems that the neighborhood has been bringing up already. You're going to have people in there that don't want to take care of the place. There's no financial reason for them to do that. Rents are going to be probably on the lower side of most of the developments that you've been seeing out here. From what we've been seeing, a lot of the Swiderski projects and stuff, they're bringing in $1,200, $1,500 a month in rent. They won't be that high. The one bedrooms and such, and keep in mind, we really don't even know yet because we're still putting the project together yet, but you're probably going to be in the $700-800 range. Two bedrooms, you know, could be up into the 800 to 1,000 range, depending on how big they are. The units did get a little bit bigger with the purchase of the property next door. We did expand out the size on them in addition to the parking and everything else that was there. So I'm a firm believer that the cheaper that you keep the rents, the more problems you're going to have. You're going to have more police calls. You're going to have more garbage there. We see it all the time. We've got a lot of units, and that's one of the reasons that we want to get this project down. It's 120 years old. You're not going to find people that want to take care of projects in a 120-year-old building. You got to give them something that they want to take care of and that we can manage to take care of. Where we're at right now in the project, we could bring people into that property 3 times a day, cleaning up after them. And there are some times that we're up there twice a day doing it, but you just can't keep ahead of it. As far as people not parking there, parking down the street, I can't address those concerns. That to me is something that, you know, the spots are there. The 56 spots is more than enough. The 1.5 parking spots per place. Most of those places, if they're a one-bedroom place, it's not mostly couples. It's going to be probably a lot of older people that want to live on Grand Avenue and see the traffic go by. You know, so they'll have one car, or maybe they'll ride the bus or something. They're not probably going to be going to work every day. They're just going to sit out on their deck and have coffee and visit with their neighbors and such. So, but it would not be in that 450 range. We're not looking at subsidized housing here.
Okay. I was just throwing that out for numbers to see, you know, if you did have a target, or if the intention of the high density was to give, you know, more like workforce housing type of a feel to it.
It's more for feasibility, and really the size is not that small, especially I think we've gotten up to like 690 feet on some of the one bedrooms and stuff now, and a little bit bigger on almost all of the units in there now, so with that additional purchase.
With the new property, are you you're pulling the buildings apart to a degree?
They are farther apart. with
Okay,
this.
she can do that.
Yep.
yep, I have a,
Thank you.
sure, I brought a couple copies. Apologize for the preliminary nature of these, this came up so fast this morning. So,
I'm just gonna take this opportunity to mention too that the proposal, the GDP, the stuff included in the packet is what we would be voting on. They'll have to come back at the next plan commission meeting either way to get the public hearing for that new property in and to do an amended GDP and the final specific implementation plan. So, whatever approval happens tonight, they will be coming back at the next month.
so to address a couple of the items, when you were asking what the square foot property per unit is, it's roughly 1,960 square feet of land per dwelling unit is with the density we're proposing. The comments regarding the aesthetics of the building, I've been back and forth with staff over the last several weeks since we've, or several days since we've presented this one. And we are looking at additional modifications to the facades, more articulation, projections, bump outs, front porches. And now that we have, as you can see on this plan, we've got, instead of the 3 very rectangular linear boxes, we've got 4 buildings that have a lot more undulation, setbacks, projections, and as I mentioned in the beginning, what we're now going to do, instead of having it 3 stories straight across, we're going to now be able to bring some of the portions of the buildings down, so we'll have a mix of 2 and 3 stories. So it'll bring that scale factor down, more in keeping.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. That's good to hear, because, as I said, it had right now kind of a monolithic feel to it. With the outward-facing laundry rooms, is there going to be venting
No.
on the walls?
And what you were seeing in that other one, those were bathroom windows, because I wanted to try and get some daylight into the bathrooms. Just oftentimes bathrooms are stuck to the inside and they get dark and it's not appealing. But with the new plan, and following the Wausau ordinances, the air conditioners, any kind of bathroom venting, we'll try and keep all of that to the inner court side so that the mechanicals and ventilation and all of that is not visible from street side.
Okay, good. Yeah, because quite often, we'll see things like, well, here's a beautiful building, and what we're not seeing is all the stuff on the ceiling, on the roof, and vents all over, and it's like, oh, well, that's what it's really going to look like. But that's good to
And
know.
we're taking to heart comments too about the front porch effect, making sure that, our entrances to the buildings have more of that homey front porch feeling. And as Jerry pointed out, he's thinking there'll be perhaps older citizens that might want to sit out. So we'll take into account too, we could look at putting some of the balconies and things up on the upper level of street side so people can actually get their eyes on the street and feel like they're, watching the neighborhood.
What's the material on the exterior?
So the building, there's the building in the back is going to remain, and that building is lap siding and some gray brick. And what we're planning to do is we found a match to that brick, and that's going to start our color palette. And it's got various colors of grays and taupes and whites and beiges. And so what we're planning to do is we're going to use a vinyl siding, most likely an Owens Corning or a Certain Teeth siding, but we're going to use a mix of textures. So we're probably going to mix some of the double 4s or double 5 lap siding with some of the shake shingle elements to it. And that's kind of what was depicted in that elevation, those projections, the bays, was going to be a different siding texture. We're also going to mix up some of the colors, so it's not just one, full building of one gray color.
Sure.
We'll mix different tones, and they've actually come quite a long way with vinyl siding and have improved and increased their color choices. So we can make a nice mix of colors. And then everything will be accented. We'll probably do white trim, white windows to pop against the grays and tans and taupes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Brad.
Hi, Jennifer. Brad Lenz, city planner. Just a question, the garbage had come up before, and it appears on the renderings that there's an enclosed dumpster area. Is the plan for commercial dumpsters versus, and there's a lot of units there for individual residential cans, so these will be commercial recycling
They will be
and
commercial dumpsters,
Okay.
and we will add more than this. Again, this kind of came up quickly this morning, so we'll, right now, they're looking at, I believe, that depicts like I think it was 2 8-cubic yard, but now that we have more space to put them, and also with the change in the layout of the units and everything, there will be more space inside as well for the individual residents. They won't be as compact, and we have more space now in those ground floors in like a common storage unit or, place to keep some of that stuff inside, so you won't see it out and about.
Thanks.
Yes, Alder Peckham and then Eric.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be Mr. Lenz or who, but I was wondering if they could speak about the reason the city settled on 3,630 square feet of property per rental unit, the importance of that, and the proposal coming in the door was less than half of that, and we're still not very much more than half of that, so I think that's a real concern. You just talk about that, Brad, as far as the space available, if it's just, or the other Brad, anybody?
I'll just comment on the first question. I haven't actually double-checked if this is correct, but the MRL 12 district is shooting for about 12 units per acre, and I believe that the 3,630 square foot per unit is what would equal out to 12 units per acre. So that kind of describes the densities of the different apartment zoning districts. So there's the MRL 12, the MRM 20, and the MRMHM 50, I think. And so those are the three different densities of the apartment districts in our zoning code. And the MRL 12 was the one that the kind of the dimensional requirements were being met, the setbacks and stuff like that. So the height, So that's for the addressing the first question.
So if there was a different type of district, there could be more units per acre?
Yes, and using the MRL 12 as an example is just, since it's a PUD, it doesn't actually have a restriction on the density. We use the MRL 12 as kind of the closest equivalent based on the existing development there and the surrounding developments. But I think I did a quick calculation before the meeting, and I think it was in the low 20s. The new density would have been around the low 20s. So it's kind of equivalent with a typical like MRM medium density apartment with the new lot added in there.
Okay,
Brad?
thank you.
On that note, so yeah, we went originally into it with the MRM 20, and then we were seeking some exceptions or adjustments on the setbacks, which brought it down kind of to that MR 12 to get the different setbacks. Now with the requirement of 1414, we've brought it back up to the MR 20 setbacks. So instead of 15-foot street side setbacks, we're back to the 20-foot street side setbacks instead of the, and we're still keeping the 8 or the 30-foot rear setbacks. So we're now going back to that MR 20 for those dimensional changes, in addition to getting the parking and the green space and the landscaping. So now we're back to adhering more to the MR 20 bulk and density.
So for the next meeting, I'll make sure to include the standard requirement for an MRM 20 district as well.
Commissioner Lindman, did you have comments?
Yeah, I just have one. On emergency vehicle access only, how are you going to prevent the general cars from trying to exit out on Grand Avenue? If you don't- Yeah.
We did speak with the fire chief, fire inspector Dave, and what we're going to do is in that, so we're not going to have, we're going to put in pavers that you can plant over, so it will not appear to be a driveway, it'll be grass, but it'll be able to carry the load of the fire vehicles.
Okay.
And he has requested that we post the entire drive as a fire lane.
Okay.
So it will be marked, it will be posted that it is an emergency vehicle and it is a fire lane to keep that open.
Okay. Thanks.
Any more discussion? Okay. It looks like we're ready to vote on approving, amending the general development plan and specific implementation plan at 1404, 1406, and 1412 Grand Avenue, and 105, 107, and 111 Sturgeon to allow for 3 multiplex residential buildings in a planned unit development. All those in favor can signify by saying aye.
Madam Mayor?
Oh.
Just one question before we vote, if I can. With the change that happened this morning with the 1414 acquisition, that being added to it but not being reflected in our drawings, are we okay to vote?
Well, I guess-
General, right?
I guess just procedurally, the notice, public hearing notices were not sent out for that additional property that they're now considering, so we're going to have to bring that back anyway.
So
to
voting on
incorporate
it as is, okay.
Yeah, you can certainly vote on it as is. I think the plan, our thought, and Brad can speak to this too, but since they are requesting an amendment, they'll need to come back to incorporate that additional property.
Okay.
You can certainly give your recommendation, formally on this, the first proposal, the original proposal. They have the guidance, the discussion from the meeting. They can come back before it goes to council for final vote, I guess, is
Okay,
what we're thinking.
thank you.
All right, all those in favor can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? One opposed. That passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 3, discussion and possible action on the final plat for Seward Park. Do you want to give a brief update on this, or?
Bill, do you want to take that one, maybe? I think Bill's.
No, this was previously on our agenda, I believe, back in June, and there has been no changes. This is just the formal application for a plat in the town of Stettin, and because they're so close, we have review authority.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve of the final plat for Seward Park. Motion by Vulcan, second by Neal. All those in favor, or is there any more discussion? All those in favor can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item number 4, discussion and possible action on the sale of 1321 Curling Way. Yes, I guess I would take a motion from Eric, second by Neal. Is there any discussion? It looks like we have someone. Yes, Mr. Peckham.
Yeah, I just had a question. One of the drawings, it looks like the property is nearly rectangular and abuts town line, and then there's another drawing with a parcel number and an arrow, and it's longer and more along the tracks. I'm wondering what they're getting.
Someone here prepared to answer that
I
question.
think what they're getting is, the first drawing, I might be wrong, but you see the yellow line, sort of facing town line and facing to the west?
Yeah.
It's the property outside of that yellow line partially is what is enabling them to, produce this parking area as you see it. So part of that property might not be, within that red area, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm totally just kind of guessing. Probably
That's
like
right.
you.
I mean, this is actually excess right-of-way from where Curling Way would, so whatever was excess right-of-way is what we're selling, because once we vacated that reverted back to the city. And so we're just following the process to So the rest of it, they already own or purchased.
So Eric, what does the yellow line signify?
Let's see. You're right, it's not a very good map.
Normally, the graphics and the art for these meetings are excellent.
The planners didn't do this one, so that's probably.
Yeah, that's,
Ain't taking a rap for that.
there it is, right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Piece along town line. I think the piece along town line is what they, yeah.
And the second image, that, like aerial photo thing's got that red outline, parcel ID 0903, like that's what we're selling.
That is, yeah. On
Okay.
the yellow line pad, I couldn't tell you
Okay.
off the cuff. I'm not exactly sure what that,
I'm just guessing that the yellow line is something that might abut the red line away from Town Line Road on the other side.
Okay.
Kind of showing what, is owned and what is, being sought.
Seems like a very common sense transaction, and if you would like a motion, I would give you one.
I think we already have the motion.
You got one?
If there are no more questions,
Very good.
I guess we can vote. All those in favor of selling 1321 Curling Way signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5 on our agenda is the next meeting date and future agenda items for consideration. Next meeting is September 15th. If you have any items for consideration, let me know, or let Brad know. Item number 6, our new section of planning, news, and education. Brad, would you like to discuss a bit?
I didn't have anything to add on this one, just thought it was an interesting article.
So everyone read it. Thank you. Item number 7, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Bergman, second by Neal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.